Heyo, Planet Sewers. Welcome back to the Meeze Africa Tropical. I think I said that backwards. Anyway, welcome back to my franchise series. If this is your first time here, this is episode 5. So we have done the all-staff facilities. We've put in 2 habitats, a Chinese pangolin and red ruff lemurs as walkthroughs. And the walkthrough actually goes around a little food court, which I did realize I have forgotten to put a bathroom for our guests. So that will actually be in the next episode. I did build it with this build here, but I wanted to keep the episode at about an hour. So what I'm doing here is I'm just kind of marking a space. I did check to see if binturongs were walkthrough, and originally that was my idea, but it kind of changed. So it is a walkthrough, but the guests don't have direct interaction with the binturong like they do in the other 2 habitats. I do have workshop items available from the first few episodes, so if you would rather not build along and just download the habitat and use it, you're more than welcome to. Also, that was the idea behind this, was kind of a build along. So what I'm doing here is just marking with a null barrier where I wanted my habitat, and I'm bringing over the fence piece, which I don't have on the workshop. It's pretty simple to make, and I made it, I think, in episode 2, maybe episode 3, but I'm pretty sure it was episode 2. Episode 2. Okay, there we go. Anyway, I'm trying to get the guest path gate there to fit. It was not being my friend. And then ultimately, just if you are following along, skip it. I end up taking it out. It didn't work the way I wanted it to, and so since it counts as the barrier, it was counting it also as an escape, and you'll see why later in the build. But I did go ahead and leave it just so you can kind of see the thought process in getting it to work. So what I'm doing is fighting myself. I don't need to add another barrier. What I need to do is click in the middle, and I need to add right here. There we go. And then I'll just move it over. So in order to be able to push around, so to speak, the barrier with the gate, I need those 2 anchor points. And so there we go. So now it kind of grabs them, and it allows me to kind of have better control. You can also see how that one kind of went wonky. I could have added another one and got a little more straight, which I should have done. So if you are following along and you want to keep it a little more simple, that's up to you. But I should have straightened that out because I end up redoing that path over there. But that's kind of how building goes. Is I sometimes just get the idea kind of on paper, so to speak, and then build around it and then adjust for functionality. So what I'm doing here is I really wanted to be able to just tunnel straight down, but it wouldn't let me. So I put one piece of path, and I'm turning tunneling back on. And again, it's being a little bit of a pain. So I'm going to take it off. So what I end up doing is just scrapping that idea. I'm thinking about it. And then I'm going to use the terrain tool instead, because the terrain tool with those settings that I have, it's going to keep the ground level with the path where the path already exists. And also it will do the same where the barriers are. Even though you can't see them, you can see right there, it will not change the terrain where I've got the barriers. So I do end up kind of scooting the barriers over. So I feel like this space is just a little too small. I probably could have made this a little bit longer, but it does turn out to be a pretty cute little walkthrough. So my new idea here is I'm gonna just do an elevated, but I'm gonna go into the advanced settings, and I'm going to turn off the railing, and then so that's where the gear is. And then I'm also going to use this one here, which is elevated length, and I'm bringing it down to 1 meter. The reason I'm doing that, I still have the, rail on elevated. I can go back later and fix that. I'm not sure when I actually do. There it is. So I don't want the railing because I'm going to build stuff around this. So I just went, you can hit J as a hotkey to go up, and then, U to go up and J to go down. So I just hit U once and then put a 1 meter elevated path, and then I hit J to go down, and then once I got it kind of where it would let me go straight down, I just continued with a stair. So when you hit J twice, it'll actually give you the stair instead of an even slope. And I did the same thing over here, up one, and then I was seeing if it would let me go down. It only let me do the slope, so I did the slope, and then it finally gave me that last bit of angle, and then just went straight down to the ground and connected the two. I do go back later to straighten this out, because the way I built this, I decided I did want it to be more straight and not to be fighting building over those curves. And I'm thinking about how I want to finish setting this up, and I do feel, right here's where I decide I need to bring this a little more space. It just wasn't quite as big as I need it to be. The Binturongs really don't need a ton of space, but I am taking up a 4 meter width right here through their habitat with the path. So I wanted to make sure that they're going to have enough space on each side of this habitat, because the plan here is I'm going to put a little walkthrough for the guests that's going to have a roof on it, and they're going to be able to see out, and then the Binturongs are going to be able to climb on top of it as well as over, so they can have access to both sides. And then also we're going to build something for the staff members to be able to traverse that as well, because I want them to be able to clean both sides of the habitat as well as have access to whatever I decide to put on either side. That way my food options aren't limited to just the one side they can get to. So I'm super thankful they've added the traversable heat map for the staff. It does make this way easier than it used to be. It used to just be kind of a guess, and eventually they would say that little notification would go away that they can't reach whatever item. It's always a food thing. So moving that over so I can get rid of that hole, and then I'm going to put it back. I just didn't like the big hole, and I wanted the path to be able to go around, and I'm just looking for where it turns blue so I can place it down. The paths don't like to get too close to the barriers. I've turned the nearby barriers off. You can turn them on or keep them on. They get in my way. They get on my nerves. So usually I'll only keep them on when I am actually trying to build something for the barrier. For instance, my little fence over there. So I'm deciding how I want to connect this into my main path so that there's other options. As the zoo gets bigger, I don't want the only way for guests to get in and out of this space is through the habitat. It will create quite the traffic jam right there. And so I'm noticing it's not being nice about letting me place the habitat gate. I'm having issues with pronunciating words today. I'm so sorry. So I just clicked the side there, hit the plus so I can add another post, and then that way it should let me grab that gate and get it where I want. You can always add in other posts if you want it to kind of face a certain direction. And finally it did do it, so I put it right there because I was getting ready to add that other post and manually decide where I wanted it to go. And I skipped picking out my binturongs. They're horrible in their genetics. There weren't many available, so I just went with what was there, and I skipped their quarantine process, as well as obviously them getting delivered. So I'm looking at where all they can go, and I can see that they really can't get into the pit. It shows a little spot over off to the side where they can, but once I get that fencing in, they most likely won't be able to get in. And the fencing that I made here, I did make sure that this is not a climbable wood, which really it would be, I think, in real life, but I'm happy it's not, so I can use it. So you do have to be careful with that, with animals that can climb. You want to make sure anything you're using on the outside of the habitat, whether it's the barrier, if you're making a custom barrier, or if you have kind of a glass viewing and you put wood on the outside, if there's climbable animals inside, currently they can grab a hold of it and escape and come through and climb that object. So watch out for that. So this is a unclimbable wood. I actually filtered for it in the episode that I built this in. If you do want this on the workshop, let me know. I'll go ahead and throw it up there. It was part of the original build along, so I didn't blueprint that. Since it's 4 pieces, I just used the ground and then raised those 3 up, and then used the angle snap to get the post. So I leave one end off on purpose, so as I go around and copy it, I don't need to delete that last post on the side. And I'm not sure why I came over here. Oh, I had a small section and I was looking for where I had another one instead of recreating the small one by hand. And I think I just decided I'll go ahead and recreate that. I wasn't sure where it was. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pick one, and I'm reading what it is. So it's the Arctic architecture beam, and there is a smaller version of it. So if you hit X and then you can click on the piece you want to replace with, you can replace them. So that's what I did. And I went back and deleted them after replacing them. There's other ways to do it. If you hit X and then change the object and then place it down and then hit delete, it should delete the original object that you had selected. Sometimes I just don't do it that way because I can't really see it, I guess. So I did it a different way this time. So grabbing that other one and moving it around, getting that in place. And then I'm just going to speed this up a little bit because we're just copying the same thing over and over again. On that one, I just brought one down and I did it again right there so that it would actually connect into the ground because they were a little bit higher. And then on this fence, I guess I could have, for a little bit of a more realistic look inside, taken off that top row and just had the 2. I noticed later when I was doing the walkthrough that the eye level actually is that top beam right there. But really they're supposed to walk through to experience, not so much walk around it. But that's a change you can make if you want to provide that for your guests. They'll still be able to see. I haven't checked the thoughts of guests by clicking on them and looking at their thoughts to see if they actually dislike the view from over there. And since I already had a small one, I went and grabbed that from that other side so that I could just duplicate those and just move them around to keep them from fighting each other. But that way I could get one more little small one in. Now I'm going to go around, grab all those posts, move them around, maybe add one here and there so that I can get the barrier all the way on the outside of the fencing. I like to keep it just kind of close to the edge. The main reason for that is if I decide to go way outside, it's still going to count that as part of their habitat, even though they can't walk over there. So I'll still have to change and adjust the terrain to match the animal needs outside of their actual area that they're in. And then here I didn't like those little posts on the side of the on the gates So I replaced it with a longer one. And so again, I could have just hit X, got the new one, and then hit delete. But I was feeling like I couldn't see it, and I wanted to make sure that the little one was gone. So I just raised it up, put it down, got rid of the little one, and then did the same thing over here, just to make sure that that piece isn't there. The more pieces you have, the harder it can be on your computer, depending on how good of a computer you have. So sometimes it is better to just use the in-game barriers instead of creating your own, because it does lower your piece counts and it makes it easier on your computer to render everything that's in your zoo, especially once you have a lot of buildings, a lot of animals, a lot of guests, a lot of staff, etc. All of those things really can weigh on your computer performance, depending on how good of a computer you have for this game. And so it's just getting that to fit right at the top. So I'm looking around. I did have a resource image that I used for this. In the image I used, it looked like the little thing I'm about to build was more for the Binturong, that it was their shelter versus a walkthrough. So I'm just adding in a couple of things before I hit play. I wanted to have the education available so that our guests' happiness can improve and stay good, so that they have education on what they're looking at. And then I'll hit play and go ahead and let them start walking through and start working on their little habitat here. I wasn't too worried about social because I have some more coming. The low welfare is coming from that they don't have the right terrain and they don't have enough climbing and their shelter and of course enrichments. So I did go ahead and hit pause again, mostly because I'm a little bit of a slow builder, I guess. At least I think I am. So I didn't want any protesters coming into the zoo while I adjusted their habitat and got it to where they were at least in the green and happy with what they have. So I'm going through, and I also went ahead and added one more veterinarian, another keeper, and I think another caretaker. I'm not sure. So I was looking to see if I needed to do research, and I originally thought I had not researched these guys, but I guess I did. That was why I got the other vet, is so that one could research and the other can tend to the animals. So I'll have to go through, and I know I don't have the newest pack animals researched, so maybe I'll go with one of those next. But I don't know if I have all the Southeast Asia animals researched yet. The zoo that I actually put them in crashed. It's a franchise zoo that I was working on before I started making content online, and it crashed like 2 days after it launched. I never was able to recover it. I'm not sure what's wrong with it. It just, every time I load it, as soon as I hit play, it kicks me out. So I'm not sure how far I got on research of that group of animals, because I started building the Houston Zoo after that. I kind of went sandbox for a little while. This is my first franchise zoo, probably in about 3 months. So I am enjoying it. I do miss franchise mode. I really did like the aspects of it. Whenever I do play in sandbox, I typically just leave all the settings the same. I like to make sure everything works, that the animals are happy. I don't turn off a lot of those things. The only thing I may turn off is the escaping, just because there are some glitches that happen with that, and so it does get annoying with the diving animals that sometimes glitch out of their barriers and into the air as they swim. So anyway, I'm putting in some climbing for them. It looks like they can't climb the rocks, so I do kind of run into some problems, but I did know I wanted to have kind of that fallen tree there. It was in my resource image. And then right here, I was going to block off the path. I did not want the binturongs to actually walk through here, as I had a feeling with how small I made the path, it's going to get crowded. The binturongs are going to get unhappy. So I'm looking at how I have this path here and trying to decide what I want to do. And at the moment, I just kind of stick with, I'm going to go ahead and go with this. So I'm aligning this. I took off the angle snap kind of with the curb, just to kind of create the same flow from where the stair came down and going straight. I was thinking about separating that off and then changed my mind. And then I just duplicated that over. I kept it in the same grid, so it's not a different grid right there. And then I wanted to do something different with the window. I didn't want to fully create my own window. I was kind of thinking where I wanted this, if I wanted it low or high. And I went ahead and decided to just put it directly on top. I didn't overlap it. Sometimes they'll fight when you do that, and I really didn't want to encounter that problem with the Z-fighting on those grid pieces. And then I edited out a little bit of my thinking here. I was doing a couple different things with the roof, and ultimately I decided what I wanted to do is kind of get this in the middle. Later on, I do use a 2-meter bamboo piece to actually measure this a little more on spot. So right here I'm just eyeballing it, but later I do go back and kind of make it a little more precise. So I'm gonna put this on so that it will kind of create a little overhang right there. And then right here I notice it's a little low, and that the top of my gate is sticking out. And then right there, it does bother me that gate is a little wonky. So I'm going in right here. I've deleted some of the path. And what I'm doing is lining it up a little better so it goes straight instead of curves. That way I could continue with my walls all the way over to the fencing. And then I'm changing that elevated again. I'm going down into the advanced settings. So I just give it one little tick up, and I do the same thing here. So I just hit U once, not twice, and then I hit it twice here. I'm kind of testing. I'm thinking about what I want to do. Then looks like I decided just to undo it. I think I end up coming in at it from the top instead of trying to come from the bottom. It looks like I've already deleted that gate. I do try to put it back, but again, if you weren't here at the beginning of the video, whoops, I hit the Windows key. For some reason I do that. I hit Windows instead of Control. But anyway, but yeah, I end up taking the guest gate completely out. It just was not in the right spot, and I was going to have to kind of redo my fence there, as well as some of the invisible barrier, in order to get this to fit the new shape that I have, and I didn't want to do that. I'm not gonna lie, I was being lazy. Anyway, so I kind of left that bottom open. I wasn't sure if I wanted to try to let the binturongs fit underneath there. I don't think they can, but it did look wonky, but I was kind of unsure what I wanted to do. So I end up go ahead and take out the little 1 meter piece so that I can replace it with a bigger piece, so that there's not so many pieces creating this little space here. So I take that out, and I just grab the 4 meter just in case I need to move anything up or down later. I don't have to worry about whether it went into the ground or not. I did ultimately decide to go ahead and cover that up instead of trying to let the binturongs have an underneath path. I should have, because what happens afterwards took me forever to fix. I should have gone ahead and brought that barrier out and made this a little bit longer, but I was kind of committed and I liked the look I had going here. I also didn't realize I was about to run into getting these binturongs to both sides of the habitat in a 2-hour fight with the game. So what I end up doing, I'll tell you when I get there, but it was a fight. It was really weird. But anyway, so I'm just adding in that little top part to kind of give a little bit of different structure here. It does match a little bit the source image that I was using. I just Googled for binturong habitats, and this one caught my eye with little metal, not metal, but concrete shelter they had. At least that's what it looked like it was for them. I'm not sure. It could have been where the guests go. But anyway, adding that out again. And then just so you know, I do end up putting the middle roof back. Originally I was thinking, oh, I'll keep it open. You can see them climbing over. But the way I ended up doing the climbing up there, they really probably can't see them much anyway. So I went ahead and put the roof back. Also, this zoo, it likes to rain a lot. So I got lucky. It's not raining right now. But the first few episodes, it's raining quite a bit, or it's dark all the time. But I also kept this on pause while I built, because the binturongs are unhappy with their space at the moment. And what I'm doing right here is I was trying to get this piece to just barely kind of cover, but it kept trying to connect to the wall right there, and I didn't want that either. I do go back and I can see it's fighting right there, and I do take that out and I do something a little different later on. I don't remember offhand, but I did want to cover that up right there, but I do something a little bit different in the end. But that is a trick you can do, is to split just one piece out if it's a grid piece, and then you can use the advanced move for left, right, up and down. It won't let you rotate. Grid pieces you cannot rotate. So here I've grabbed kind of the whole group, and I'm trying to shift these two things to kind of meet a little better so that they're even, because I noticed on one side it kind of had one look, and then on the other side it didn't have the same look, so that bothered me. So I'm trying to get this just in the right spot. So I'm trying to see where each one kind of does a little bit different of a thing here. And I think this is also why I decided to go ahead and roof the whole thing. These little differences were bothering me a little bit. They may not bother you, that's okay, but it bothered me. I just have quirks like that. So right here I'm trying to get this to where it just barely is on the edge of it, and then setting it down and then checking the other side. So I was trying to see if I could get it where both were exactly the same, and it just wasn't happening. So I got frustrated with looks and I deleted it. The process of building. So I hit Windows again. I still go with that overhang. I decided I'll set it down on the grid, and then I think looks like I'm gonna lower it. No, I can't remember what I did. Oh, I'm gonna put it there. So it's just underneath it. And then I'm gonna highlight this one, and I'm gonna bring it out so that we're kind of at that halfway. I'm still just kind of eyeballing, although later I do get out just a 2-meter piece so that I can actually make sure, and there it is. I just set it down. I used a snap placement and then rotated it so it was flat. So now I can line up that inside edge with the other inside edge, and I feel more confident in my spacing so that I actually have that it's 2 meters hanging over. And again, I hit the Windows key. I didn't realize recording with this different way I've been recording lately that it will actually show that. So whoops, I didn't catch that in my editing as I kind of zoomed through to see what I wanted. And again, you can see I've decided, yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and put in the roof right here in the middle, and then I take it out. I'm still deciding how I want to do that part in the middle. I think I end up going with just like right on the center. So I go back into that other group because I have 2 groups going right now. And then I wanted to use this plant wall. I forget what it's called in the game. I always forget. I have a hard time finding it. And since I do have the snap on, they're kind of snapping not where I want. So I just go back and I wanted to make sure they were all even. So I put them all down on the snap and then scooted them all over so that the edges hit that edge in the center there. Or not center, but I think you know what I mean. On the left and the right, there's a little groove. And I wanted to make sure that that was right in the middle of those grooves. And I'm going to copy this guy over to the other side. I do end up changing one of these quite a bit. Like I said, as I was building their climbing, I really struggled to get this to work with what I had in mind. I would throw one to the other side, and it was just really frustrating. They both could climb up from either side, but they couldn't get down on the other side. It didn't make any sense. So they could get up, and they could get up onto the roof, and then they could go back down to the side they were on, but it wasn't registering the other half of the habitat. So when I threw one to the other side, the same thing kind of happened in its traversable area. They could walk all over that side. They could get up onto the roof, but they couldn't get to the other side of the habitat. So I went through several different things trying to get that to work. I am picking climbable trees, so I do have that as one of my filters. And I just hit the Asia and the biome buttons in the Binturong plant menu or foliage menu. I don't know its technical name, but yeah. So that's all I did, and I kind of stuck with those, and I'm just rotating them to see what kind of look I want for these different climbable trees. And I love that one. I don't know how you pronounce it. It's like a tamarind. I don't know. And the pronunciation is not my thing sometimes. Anyway, so I was picking out the different plants that I wanted until it was happy with the coverage. And then I'm going in and I'm going to pick out all the different enrichments so that I can hopefully hit play and not get any protesters. I want to make sure that their welfare gets in the green while I figure out how to get these binturongs from one side of the habitat to the other. So at this time in my building, I have no clue that that is about to happen. And then I'm going to have a 2-hour struggle with that, which don't worry, we won't be here for 2 hours. I cut a lot of that out. And you kind of get to see the solution more so than me going through 2 hours of real time. And I didn't even bother speeding it up because it's just a lot of moving things, trying to get different things because I really wanted to keep it with climbing. But ultimately, what made my decision was I did need to get the staff over from one side to the other. And I wasn't thinking about that in the beginning. I was just so focused on getting the binturongs across that it didn't even occur to me that my staff also needs to be able to get over here. So I'm just carefully placing different things, trying to make sure that they have kind of some hidey spaces as well as some things that are close up that'll get them close to the guests. I still have that guest gate in here. I don't get that removed until I solve the binturong problem of being able to have access to both sides of the habitat. It's once I get that solved, I realize I either need to put some blocks up on top of the roof, or I need to remove these gates or redo the whole outside. And at that point, I was very tired. So again, I'm just using that elevated link in the advanced menu there, coming from that direction so I can get down. So I'm giving it a little up. That one I had to go twice, and then one down, and then I was able to get the stair, and I can see I'm going to run into the path that I've already got there. So I get rid of it, and I'm trying to get this to connect back because I didn't want to have to go delete any more of that path over there. Finally I get it, and it looks good. I really wish I could have kept it this way, but I really just did not want something else on my roof. I was really happy with how the roof came out. So I went with a different solution once I figured out I couldn't keep the guest gates. Oh well, I really liked them. I kind of wish I could have a guest gate that wasn't a barrier, but oh well. Anyway, I'm sure there's a way to do it. I'm already thinking ways that I probably could have circumvented it, but sometimes those methods don't work either. But since I didn't do it, we won't discuss it. So, covering that up again on this side, I should have used the bigger wall instead of those pieces, but I was ready to start getting the climbing in, and I guess I just grabbed what I saw first. I think I duplicated it instead of changing my menu. And we're gonna go and get some vines, because I do have this again filtered for climbing on the nature tab. And on the vines, I really love that their anchor point, so to speak, if that's what it's called, is at the end instead of the center. It makes me so happy because it's so easy to get these to move. You just put that anchor point side where you want the item to start, and then I'm using the advanced move. I'm hitting X to toggle in and out of left and right, or the circles for the rotation, and just changing my camera view so that I can make sure that I pick the correct circle in order to rotate this up and down. Then I realized it's kind of in the air. I didn't like it there. I think I'm going to go with a different one as well. I'm picking a longer vine instead of the shorter one, and getting kind of close in so that I can make sure, I can see, oh, it looked like it was touching the tree, but it really wasn't touching the tree. It was in the air. Different camera angles will fool you. It happens to me all the time. I'll come back later and I'll be like, why is that plant in the air? It looked like it was in the ground from this other viewpoint. So now I've got that anchored into the tree. I'm just moving this until it kind of hits a spot where it's not in the concrete, and then I'm going to rotate it up a little higher, and then I think I'm going to scoot it back some, and I'm going to end up kind of putting a post right here so that it connects into it and lands in the roof of the Binturong pass-through. Trying to select just that. I kept hitting the wall over there, and I'm going to duplicate it. So I hit Control X to make a new one, and then I'm just rotating it to the left so that it'll kind of mirror the other side. They're not exactly the same, but they're close. That way they can get to each side of the roof, because originally here I still intended to keep this open, but ultimately I do decide to go ahead and roof off the whole thing. I just can't tell you at the moment what I ended up doing. I don't remember. So I don't do the voiceovers anymore while I record it in real time. I've lost a lot of the audio that way and end up redoing it. So I've just started editing and doing the voiceover here after the fact. So I've picked out some climbing from the habitat menu to go ahead and make something that goes across here. And that is where I decided, or this move, I guess, by building this is why I decided to go ahead and kind of cover that along with the rain issue. So I went ahead and highlighted this, all three of them. They're in a group, so I can just hit Control and select them all. If I was not in a group, I would have to hit I to select all of them and hold Control at the same time. But anyway, so I just wanted to even that out, and then giving them a little ramp down so that they can get to the ground. And maybe this is why it didn't work, because I have the end of that going straight into the ground, even though it showed they could walk around up there. I'm not really sure what the issues were on why they could get up here, but not down on the other side. It really baffled me. Still baffles me. That's okay. So I'm gonna copy that, spin it around the other way, and put one over here. So that was my original plan. I was like, okay, so they have a way to get up here and they have something to climb on. And then I'm gonna give them some vines on the other side so that they can get up there. And I've got that one there, and I'm kind of readjusting, it looks like, just to aim it a little more towards that pole, and I can see it's not quite touching. And I'm trying to decide if I want to scoot the ramp rig over, or if I want to move the vine, or if I want to just put in another pole. And I just go with, we're going to put in another pole. And I was trying to get it, with the snap, it was not behaving. So once it got vertical again, I just went ahead and hit X so I could slide it around and get it to where it connects. And that gives them a way to get off of there and not just have a random vine in the air. That doesn't make any sense. I was struggling to just highlight right there, and then I lost it. Oh, I hit X. There it is. So I'm going to scoot this a little more to the left, and then go ahead, and I think I'm going to scoot it up some and do the same thing. Because I was trying to see, does it actually touch the roof? It kind of does, but not really. So I'm going to slide this over, even though they're not quite at the same height. That's okay. It doesn't need to be exactly symmetrical. I love symmetrical stuff. I try to keep it that way, but that's really not that realistic, I guess. There's a lot of things that do occur in nature symmetrically. I was trying to join two words, and it did not work. Anyhow, so I'm going to grab this, and we're going to do the same thing on the other side. I'm going to hook it in up here to down there. So I'm trying to get an angle on this tree, and I'm struggling. I'm trying to figure out to where on the tree I kind of want to connect in. So I'm thinking right here looks good, and then we'll get I can see by the arrows it's a little off kilter, so to speak. So it is going to kind of turn it a little weird. That's okay. I'll use the arrows to get it how I want it as we get a little closer. And I like to try to also have a view of the orbit, so to speak, where I can tell which one does what. There's been many times I get a little turned around and I can't tell which one is up, down, or left, right, or rotate around. So often I do kind of change my angle more for the circle than so much the view of the piece, because also they kind of go a little crazy on you. At least they do for me, where I can't get that nice fine tuning on them. They just kind of, they're like, phew, and off they go. It's like, no, I didn't want that. I did not want that much movement. At least that's my approach. That's what works for me. So I copied that with Control D, and I'm gonna just get it to snap, and then I'll move it where it connects in and scoot it to where that end piece gets hidden. And there we go. And it could be that I was hiding those end pieces. I need to go back and look at some of the tutorials available online. There's several people out there that have done some great ones. I know Rudy has done some, or he's done some testing about climbing, and it's been a while since I've seen them. I don't know if anything's changed in the last few months, but there are certain ways of building things that can make climbing rigs work really well. And there's certain things you can do that actually will kind of create some problems depending on how close the ends are to each other. So you can see here, I'm looking, and it's like, okay, so they can get through. I can see they can go inside because I don't have the glass in yet, but I can see they cannot get to the other side. So I'm going to go ahead and put the glass in, so that it keeps them out of where the guests are viewing them. So I'm going to just use glass panes and advance move those and kind of hide them in. Just give them a little push into the wall and then slide them around so they're all kind of the same. And then I'll slide this one all the way over to the other side and do the same thing. Just get it right in there. And I'm going to come look at it from this side because I can see I've overshot the mark a little. Set it down and then go ahead and slide them all over. Doesn't matter where they are on the inside as long as they're not peeking out. So on this one I'll go ahead and drop it kind of down into the ground. That way the little opening is covered. And I used the doors actually to make this, the door piece that goes over like a staff building where the door is. That was how I decided to create this window opening. And then double checking to making sure I have glass on everything. Looks like I missed this one over here, so I'll go ahead and get that one in. Not that I think the binturongs are going to be able to get through there, but I want to make sure all the glass is there. And then I remembered I have these over here next to the gate, so I needed to put that one in. So I skipped out all of the fighting. So you'll notice a couple of things maybe changed. Both sides do not have the same fallen tree anymore. One of them is turned up, and I totally gave up and remembered my staff needs to be able to get across here as well. So I'll go ahead and just put something in, see if the staff can actually use it to get to the other side, and see if it solves the binturong problem. You can also see I duplicated that little ramp over to the other side. I added some poles in. All of those things didn't help. So those are just some of the changes I made in the skip from putting in the glass and then the 2 hours of fighting binturong climbable areas. So I've got just a little platform here. So I'm going to put that here. It's running into my tree. So I'm kind of not happy with how that's panning out for me. I think I'm going to move the tree is what I end up doing. But my staff does need to get over here. That way I can keep one of the feeder items that I have over here, because that's kind of what clued me in. I needed to build this as they can't get over here. So I'll move the tree in a minute when I get done with this piece. I think I may just drop this piece. I don't remember. I'm looking around. I'm trying to decide what way I want to go. Do I want to go straight into the habitat from here, make a turn, move the tree? That's my thought process that's happening right here. And as you can see, I decided just to delete the tree. I can always put another one back. It was in my way. So I duplicated that long piece. So I'm gonna aim this down at a 45-degree angle, and I'm hoping that my staff will be able to use it, because I really did not want to use a lesser angle, because that means I would need more material to get down. It looks like I went ahead and did that after I said that. But anyway, probably because of the angle of where it's going to land, it looks like it's going to land on that feeder if I had left it at the 45. So I hit spacebar to get out of angle snap and go ahead and rotate that freely. And so I've got it in place, and then the tree's in my way. So I'm going to go ahead and push that back, and it kind of messes up. You can see where I have the vines that were attached to different things as I was trying to get this to work. So I had the vine attached to that tree. I've got this vine right here that was attached to the other tree originally. So I'm going to go ahead and take this out. I'm trying to delete that post because I don't need it if I don't have a need for the vines anymore, because I still have the two main vines that are coming off that other tree. So I scooted that feeder over, and then we're going to go ahead and use this and take it into the ground. And hopefully I've got enough space for it. I can see another rogue vine that used to attach to that climbing tree. or the broken tree. It's a climbing tree too. But so there we go. I've got that in place. So then I went ahead, this will work. I don't need to add support to it, but it's not very realistic if I'm going to have my staff walking on it. And so I chose this piece here to kind of look like a real rustic, simple support for that little pathway. So it just gives it support so it doesn't bend, doesn't wobble, hopefully isn't too rickety. My staff doesn't necessarily just fall off of it. It's not the safest thing in the world, but ultimately it does work. So I did have to change this side a little bit, where I had the post coming up. It did get in the way of how the staff moved, so I had to change that one at the end. Originally, what I wanted to do was just copy that whole thing over. I'm looking around to see if I have a binturong that I can select and snag, but there wasn't one over there, or at least if there was, I couldn't find him. So I was looking to see if that would work for them, and it's showing they can climb it, but they still don't have that traversable space on that side, which is so annoying. It makes no sense, but probably my guess is right here I have that going straight into the ground. So I'm going to go ahead and copy this over to the other side, because that's my other thought too. And plus I need it to test for the staff. So I thought, well, I'll just copy it over and throw it over here. But I was going to have to move all that stuff over there, and I didn't want to move that. I liked how that was. So I'm going to do it in pieces. So I'm going to grab just these 3 things, and then with angle snap on, I'm going to rotate that, and then we're just going to line it up and then zoom it over to the other side, find a good little spot for it, and there we go. And then I'm going to set that down, and then I'm going to copy the other straight piece, which right here, and then those supports. And it's not letting me select it for some reason, so I went ahead and closed out of everything and then went back into the group. It was being a little finicky, and zoom that over there, and then I'll adjust these items to fit being able to work for either the binturong or the staff, whichever ones are going to use it, which it looks like both will be able to use it. So that's a win-win. But I had to get rid of my lovely little rock. I scooted it down some, so kind of messed with my original plan that I had started with, but oh well. So I can see here it's showing, okay, they can climb, and finally I got that traversable area for the binturong all the way across. And I was like, oh. And then I do check the staff traversable area after I've deleted that gate there, because after all that struggle, I really did not want to move all the barriers and my fencing, mostly the fencing, so that it would not trigger the escape warnings if they're running around on the roof. So I had to redo this out here, and I end up redoing it twice because I don't want to have a wonky connection right there. So I'm going to connect the circle part and then get my path right back in there. So there we go. And right here is where I just needed to give that one piece a little spin so that my staff can actually use it. So when I selected it, it shows me that I do need to move it, and then when I put it down, it was still in the way. So I rotated it again until it let me go ahead and put it down without being in the way. So here's where I'm deciding I do want the roof right here as well. So I went ahead and copied it over and then lowered it to be level with the roof part of that lower path piece. I'm looking at what's going on here and what I want to do with it. One thought I had was putting a window here. The other thought was just what I'm going to do is get this into that center group, and I'm going to, actually nope, I have it not in the center group. I have it attached to the floor group or the roof, and I'm just covering up that all that different stuff. It just bothered me. And then I end up doing the same thing out here, so, as kind of like a little overhang. So I've lost it. It won't give it back to me. So I'm gonna have to get a new one. It does that sometimes. It's stuck in Never Never Land. So I'm gonna reselect it, and we're gonna go with 1 meter, and I'm gonna raise it up, and then that way I could make that nice and smooth. It's not fighting anything, so it's just on the edge. It's on the outside part, not the inside. And there we go. And then that just looks so much better to me. And then we're gonna go ahead and put the name on here, and I decided to call this Binturong Pass. What I took out in my editing was me making some mistakes and checking the spelling. Spelling's not my strong suit, so the little sign over there doesn't actually have English on it, so I had to look in the Zoopedia to remember how to spell Binturong, and then I decided I wanted it to be that same color almost as my fence, and I'm gonna just give a little nudge. I highlighted all those letters, separated them from the group that they were in, and made them their own group. That way I could easily grab them, change them if I want. You could make a little shadow the same way and offset the letters and change the color behind it or in front, however you want to do it. Kind of give it a little 3D effect and just give it a nudge up and a nudge to the left or right. Once you have all those pieces together, and they'll all offset in the same way. I did not do that here. I just kept it simple, and there we go. So there is the Binturong Pass. So I do have some pictures, just a few at the end of this, but next week we're gonna start on a little section out here, and you get a little sneak peek of the bathrooms, and I end up going ahead and putting a few more vendors out here so that I can attract guests this direction and go ahead and build a few things on this side of our zoo. So we're going to put that bathroom in, and you'll get to see how I continue this little concrete theme in this side of the zoo. I haven't decided on an animal yet for next week, but thank you so much for hanging out with me in franchise mode for Binturong Pass. I'll be live this Thursday, and I hope you guys have a great day, and may the RNG odds be ever in your favor.